Christmas time so far. I always say to people, I hope your Christmas is as good as it can be, because do you know what I mean? It's never good for everyone, is it? It's all really different and it's full of stuff. And in theory, I should have a lovely, lovely time with all my family stuff, but I did cry over my oven fucking up my food. And guess what I did? I just fucking bought a new oven. That's why. That was it. Fucking hell, more money than sense. Ruby Red, hi, I'll turn my camera off for a sec. Just wanted a wave in. Oh, thank you. A wave back as well. Brilliant. I played Cards Against Humanity with family and had a long discussion about what bukkake is. It's a very exclusive form of champagne, so I hear. That's what it is, isn't it? Bukkake, isn't it? Of course it's not. I always enjoy educating my vanilla folks. Yeah, that's an interesting one, isn't it? How much do you say? How much do you not say, especially around friends and family? And should we limit ourselves? Who knows? Karen, no holidays here, sick with COVID. Oh, you poor thing. That's so shitty. I know so many people who have been so ill this sort of like over the Christmas period, ruined people's Christmases, changed everything. People really haven't done well at all. I told them it was a perfect skincare routine. Did you all of a sudden become a man? Isn't that what is protein? It'll help you lose weight. It's good for your skin. Come on, let's go back. We said a new one for next Christmas, not next week. So I know, but it fucked me off so much. I'm so upset about it. I can't cook with a gas oven. Anybody want a full range, 110 centimetres? If you come and get it, you can have it for free. A lot of people sick indeed. Yeah, I agree, Karen, they really are. It's the worst Christmas ever, but looking forward to New Year that doesn't contain my ex. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. I think it's so interesting, isn't it? How can we make Christmas okay? And I covered that last time we were talking, what can we do? And like somebody was saying, oh, it's really difficult. I'm alone and I'm by myself. But actually, I was talking about volunteering, but I was talking to one of my clients today. You can also do phone call volunteering, especially to old people who don't have anyone to talk to. And it's a lovely thing to do. There are plenty of things that you can do to make things change and make things feel better. There really are. So I really hope that your new year is much better and it's the start of something new for you. I really hope that happens. So we've got 25 in, which is still quite a few, maybe too many to put the chat on, but we'll see how we go. We'll see what happens. So I asked about New Year's resolutions, and somebody already wrote in and said to me, one of my New Year's resolutions is to heighten my self-esteem and get more confident at things that I do. How would you suggest I do that, especially quantitatively? Now, that's quite a hard question to answer, especially if we're talking about quantitative, because that is complex, because quantitative self-esteem is about feeling okay about yourself. So how do you quantify that? Only you can measure that. But I wanted to talk a little bit about self-esteem and then see what you think as well. So write down the side and let me know your ideas. So self-esteem and self-confidence are two different things, and I think people forget that. So self-confidence is about, I have an ability to do something. So it might be that you're really good at running workshops, but actually your self-esteem is quite low because you don't feel like you can do things or you're not good enough. It might be that you're really good at your job. It might be that you are really good at running and you get on with running and you're like, cool, this is really good. I can really run. This is really cool. But actually you never believe you're going to win. So self-esteem is about how worthwhile you feel. Rose, happy Christmas, Deb. Thank you for tonight's webinar. You're so welcome. I hope it covers a few things that you want covered. Let's see where we go. So low self-esteem stops you from enjoying life, really. It's that internal critical voice that a lot of us have, and it can be quite complex. It's a strange one because it's such an intrinsic mechanism that we have that develops over time. And a lot of people's self-esteem can start low and then actually can get higher, or it can start high and can get low, or it can fluctuate depending on environment, upbringing, circumstances. It could depend on a relationship, the way somebody treats you and just takes you down and stops you stop believing, not just in your skills and capacity, but in your okayness as a human being. If you sort of meet somebody who just walks into a room and radiates positivity and okayness, they could be pretending, but it's quite hard to radiate that unless you truly believe it. You can pretend it, but some of us can get like those feels that say, I think that's a bit of a farce. So what do you mean about self-esteem? So you've got self-esteem, you've got self-esteem theory if you want to go back, but it's everybody wants this thing called high self-esteem. I want to think the world of myself. Well, you know, you're going to be a narcissist if you go too far. I know everyone's a narcissist nowadays. Notice the sarcasm. They're not. Narcissism is that narcissistic personality disorder is very different to a trait of narcissism, of which we all have in some way. We've all got double standards. We all think we're right about one thing. We all think we hang the washing the right way, or fill the dishwasher, or dry our things off. We all think we're right about something, which you could argue is a narcissistic trait, because I'm right, everybody else is wrong. And the way I hang washing is better than you. There are no two ways about that, right? But that's what I mean. So Control Freak says, don't self-esteem, self-confidence closely crossover? Not, yes, they do, but not as much as people always think. So somebody with really low self-esteem can be really confident about some of the tasks that they do. They might not believe they're going to do well, and they might not believe they win. So it might be that my third eldest daughter is a really good example of that. Her self-esteem can be quite low. She does a piece of work. She's like, oh, fucking hell, I'm going to fail. It's a piece of shit. I can't do it. So if her self-esteem gets in the way, but she does the piece of work, and then she ends up getting a first on it near enough every single time. That's quite interesting, isn't it? So does she have the confidence? Well, she has the confidence to do it, and she keeps doing it, and she keeps doing it well, but her self-esteem gets in her way, but she still does it. And again, it could be that we feel quite differently. So your self-esteem is all about your worthiness. Am I worthy of this? How do I go? So you might feel really confident sexually, but you might not feel worthy. So like, I think in Sex and Play, no, she doesn't have the confidence in herself either. They can cross over, but she does have the confidence to do it. She doesn't shy away from doing it. She still does it. So if her self-esteem and her self-confidence were completely on the floor, she wouldn't even give it a go. She wouldn't even start. She would find a way not to do it. So her self-confidence is a little bit more than she thinks it is. It's just not particularly clear for her. So it depends. So you can feel a difference in your self-esteem and your self-confidence in very many ways. People lump them together all the time. I'm just trying to differentiate them just a little bit for us, so it helps us a little bit. But yes, there are shit tons of crossovers. But self-confidence is a confidence in your ability to do something, so it's more functional. It's about something. Self-esteem is about how you feel in your mind, body, and soul, about who you are as a person. And if your self-esteem is low, you're likely to be a people pleaser. You're likely to have sex when you don't want to, actually. You're likely to have sex because you believe that someone will love you. You're likely to play and push yourself into corners you don't want to be pushed into, because somehow you believe that if I do this, this person will like me more, I have value. And we become very much more a human doing rather than a human being. So it's about our worth and our okayness. There are arguments that William James was one of the first people who started to really talk about self-esteem. And his principle was that self-esteem is about our success, got to remember this, divided by our pretensions. That's what he said that way. So what he means is our success and how that's divided amongst our goals and values and the things we believe about ourselves and our potential. So if our success exceeds our expectations, we feel differently about ourselves. We think, oh yeah, no, I'm good. And that raises our self-esteem. And actually, that's quite an interesting one when you want to raise your self-esteem. We all see every day as, you know, you'll all have different pressures on how you feel about life. And New Year's Eve is a really fucking good example of this. New Year's Eve is only good if I go out. New Year's Eve is only good if I'm with a group of friends. New Year's Eve is only good if I am in a couple. New Year's Eve or a throuple or a poly group. New Year's Eve is only any good if I'm with my friends. New Year's Eve cannot. And we've got all these criteria that we put on ourselves that might be unachievable in some way, shape or form. And this can be about anything. I agree with you that it's bollocks, but I agree. So, but let's say we put that on ourselves. And Moon says, a little earlier, I found a 12-step program on codependency and self-esteem is one part. Yes, I have a lot of time for the 12-step program, and sometimes I have no time for it, depending on what they're asking from it. I guess I go more into set and setting than I go into the 12 steps, especially if the 12 steps uses God and only God. I think there has to be a balance, especially if it uses someone else. You have to believe in yourself, because if you lose your belief in yourself, which is what self-esteem is about. Yeah, I can see dogs as well. Cosmopolites, doggies, definitely. Doggies. As Inf just said, puppies. Not those sort. If you're showing those sort, you need to get out of the room right now, okay? There are different forms of puppies. Only one is allowed. And I didn't cover that. So please no nakedness. Please no commenting on somebody else. I mean, if you see dogs and cats, that's fine. Unless they have a self-esteem problem. Maybe their owners will share. God knows. Fucking hell, it's a complex world nowadays, isn't it? It's getting worse. I don't know where I stand anymore. So, I think just be kind to each other. Don't comment on what somebody looks like or whether they've got a beautiful smile or anything else as well. Bella says, funny enough, one of my resolutions is to work on my self-esteem in hopes of being more secure in my boundaries and myself. And I'm going to come on to some how-tos, and they might suit you in a minute, Bella. And Leather Liner says, hello, Master Jim. So the problem is, if our achievements are low and our expectations are high, we see ourselves as failures. We have that disconnect, don't we, of I never quite manage it, I don't do well. But what I was going to go on to say before I got also slightly distracted by puppies was part of the problem is that we don't see the basics as an achievement. When somebody's got depression or somebody feels low, one of the things I suggest is take everything back into tiny movements. So like, if you're going to get up in the morning, if you say, I've got to get to work, that's about 50 to 60 tasks in order to achieve to get to work. If you take everything back and you go into things along the lines of, can I sit up? Yeah, I can. What's better for me as a human being? I can always lie back down again. Let's sit up. Yeah, I've achieved that. Well done, Deb. Well done. Good girl. Whatever you want to say to yourself. Good boy. It doesn't matter who you are. Good puppy. If you're a cosmopolite right now, dog, like that. That works. If I've just turned someone on, I'm really sorry. Right, so if you, I'm kidding, clearly. So if you then sort of like say, okay, I'm sitting up. This is cool. This is good for me. Can I swing my legs around? Because actually the thought of getting in the shower right now feels a bit distant and I can't do that. And if you break everything down into tiny steps, none of you have, maybe one or two of you do, but most people, most of the time, don't like to say everybody always, don't say well done on the tiny things. Oh, I'm standing up, I got out of bed. Well, that's an achievement. I bet you don't. If you make your bed, how many of you just go, oh, fuck it, I don't want to make my bed, or oh, I made my bed, so what? Or if you have a shower, or if you put clothes on, if you get ready, if you manage to put deodorant on for the day, I think it's really important to say congratulations, well done, and you get into that whole principle of achievement, which makes us feel better long term. Leather Liner says, I do every little thing's an achievement, and it's really important to say well done. Fucking hell, if you've got a, I've got to be really careful what I say here because I've got a lot of little things that are listening to me. But if you've got anything like your phone or Google or an Amazon product, any of those, do you know you can set them to different names so they can say, hey, good girl, or whatever, or hey, good boy, or hey, domly human being, or whatever, and they can lift us up as well, especially if you're not getting it anywhere. Moon, you said that God, yes, or a higher power of my understanding, I've chosen to be mental clarity, which is a great one because it's yours and you can own it. Karen, I don't really have a new resolution. I'm healing from PTSD and I just want to find and follow my joys in life again. It's what I've been doing for the last couple of months and learn how to be okay with my trauma triggers and this new vulnerability and how I am these days. And it is all baby steps. Exactly. And exposure to a lot of those triggers is really important because the more exposed we get, the better we start to feel. Although most people won't tell you that. And they say avoid all triggers at all costs. That's not true. Not if you truly study trauma long term. It's just not true. So our self-esteem can build up or it can drop down over the years. And it can really, there was somebody called Morris Rosenberg, who really looked at self-esteem in adolescence. And the amount of study that they were doing around adolescence was how much self-esteem can be damaged or lifted when you are an adolescent. Really can be. And Moon said, instead of a spiritual awakening, I say psychological awakening. I think it's less confusing feeling. Yeah, I don't disagree with that. And I think this is what we're talking about as well. It's challenging our perceptions of ourselves, and it's challenging what we think we're capable of, and it's challenging a lot of those things that are really good for us. I really enjoyed using the Obedience app. in my now dead dynamic. I need to work out how to incentivize myself without it. But you can play with it by yourself. And Bella's just said the same. Use it by yourself. Set tasks for yourself every day, small things, and say, I really want to do this. This is good for me. Be your own person. I'm not advocating you don't go into an MS or a DS or a controlling dynamic. Of course I'm not. I'm a fucking kinky, strange human being. I love that stuff. But if you don't have it, it's how do you do it every day? I lived for the praise from someone else. The question here is, how do you learn to praise yourself? I do it all the time. The day before yesterday, I decided I was going to take down my Christmas tree pretty fast. And I've got two Christmas trees up. I've got a white plastic one up with loads of slate on it that says the names of people I love and principles that are important to me, like honesty, trust, and all those different things. And then I've got another real tree with lots of glass and stuff on it. So it's a very different look. And what I did is in my 10 minutes in between clients, even if I'm working a 10 or a 12-hour day, I just took 3 or 4 things down, wrapped them up, put them in a box. By the end of the day, I cleared both. And I was like, well done, Deb. Good girl. This is amazing. Yes. And I think if you set things up for yourself, like small congratulatory things, 10 minutes off, 20 minutes watching your favorite program, little things that you can do, a nice salt scrub or a massage for yourself in the bath, or taking a little bit of extra time looking after yourself, you can incentivize. You can do a lot of things. And as the real Brat said, you can make some really good friends on the scene, and we can incentivize each other and saying, well done, you're doing such a good job, I believe in you. Although it costs money, it doesn't cost a lot to do something lovely for somebody else, or just say I'm thinking of you in some way, shape or form. It doesn't have to be a teddy bear or chocolates or flowers. Maybe you can't afford those things. You can just say, hey, I'm thinking of you, and well done. And Mind Fondler Tingle Bliss says, I put a daily reminder on my Google Calendar to tell me just to chill and relax. If I don't put breaks in my calendar's online and people book in, and I can forget a break. Today with this, I'm working a 13-hour day. That's too much, and I haven't had a break, whereas I've got 3 breaks tomorrow because I was like, fuck that. That's ridiculous, Deborah. You've overworked today. You've done too much. So I think that's really important to look at. So adolescent years are really important. They're so uncertain. We're finding ourselves when we're adolescents, aren't we? I don't know if you remember back. For some of us, it was a very long time ago. For some of us, it's yesterday. I'm 60 in a couple of years. It's fucking not yesterday for me, I tell you. But I do remember feeling okay in my adolescent years, but I also remember my sister feeling the opposite. She didn't feel well about herself and how it was. And I think it's worse nowadays than it ever has been, because we don't just compare ourselves to friends and peers. We compare ourselves to everybody everywhere. We now have this wide access to the whole world, and that's really bad for our self-esteem. One of the things we really do badly when our self-esteem is low is self-criticism. It's that internal voice that has a go at yourself all the time that says, hey, you won't amount to much. You can't manage that. That's not enough. It's never enough. And one of the rules I have for myself, because I've shown it to you before, is I have a photo of myself when I was really little. I'll bring it up now. I need my glasses on to look at my phone. I should have thought about this earlier. I'm making it up as I go, so... I keep this particular photo of myself. So this is a photo of myself and my sister. And I'm really little there, and we're with our dog, and that's me. And my rule is, if I wouldn't say it to her, I'm not going to say it to myself now, because we're part of ourselves. And it's really important to remember that. If I wouldn't have a go and say, if I wouldn't feed her chocolate all day, if I wouldn't not feed her all day, or if I would keep her starved, or if I would just say to her, you're fucking useless, aren't you? Or for fuck's sake, why did you do that? If I'm not going to speak to another human being like that, it's one of my rules not to do it to myself. And that said, I fail at that regularly. Like, I cried on Christmas Day when I couldn't get my fucking roast vegetables to work. I cried because I failed as a human being. For me, because a lot of my stuff used to be in my value of what I provide. I've done the presents right, I've done the tree right, everything is fucking great, I'm loving it. But that part of me then just went, you can't even cook roast fucking vegetables, yeah, pathetic, whatever it was. And I started to cry, and what was amazing is all my girls and 2 of their partners just stepped in and said, Mum, stop, it doesn't matter, it's just fucking food. You wouldn't say that to anyone else, you don't work like that. They reminded me of all those things that are really important and helped me. And Do you know what, control freak? It's not we can be our own worst enemy. We 100% always are. All the criticism you've heard, all the people you've tried to please, you have internalized and you're still trying to do it, which is one of the problems around self-esteem. You're trying to make the impossible happen. You've got one of those old-fashioned washing lines that you think you've got to reach on a pulley, but you're pulling it up with this hand and you're trying to reach it with this one and wondering why you can never get there. It is down to you. It isn't anybody else. It is you who is comparing. It is you who is sorting that out and making it worse for yourself. The real brat says, sorry, Tits have said, I've got a friend reminding me to eat and saying, well done when I do, but it's not long term. No, it isn't. Do you know what? You've got to become your own friend, Tits up, really harshly. See if you can get some therapy, see if you can get some help, see if you can get some support, see if you can go to some groups and find ways that we can do that for ourselves, because that's one thing lockdown taught us. How do I do this for myself? And the real brat says, on a typical day, I'm okay, but when I'm a little lower than usual or I'm ill, I make mini goals and I'm happy if I've done them. Sat up, got out of bed, showered. Fantastic. If I dry my hair, make soup, and it's helped me on those days to still feel I've done something good. Even if I get back to bed, I need the rest, it's okay. I really agree with that. It's the very small things that help. I think we look for motivation when we should look for motion. And I think that's a really important definition to make. We want motivation like a handbag that we're going to pick up and it will help us. Here it is, I found my motivation, off we go. And it's like, hang on, I'm on a roll, I'm sitting up. There is motion here. How can I engage with this motion and just take another step and just do a tiny bit more? So instead of looking for motivation, just think about being in motion and think about keeping going just that little bit. So I've done that and I can manage that and I feel better about that. Moon says, thank you for the reminder of wouldn't speak to her. It's so important. It really is. Jazz, I have a huge issue being too critical of myself and not acknowledging the achievements stemming from past trauma. The photo idea is excellent, reminding ourselves we wouldn't treat others that way. And Tits, I'm overdosing on therapy right now. Okay, so actually, I'll say the opposite. If the therapy isn't working and you're doing too much and you're becoming too analytical, then therapy isn't good for you either. You need a therapist that's going to turn that down sometimes as well. Honestly do, because we can get so involved in ourselves. I had a client recently who went in because they were really bad, very suicidal, not feeling very well at all. And when I spoke to him last week, he's like, fuck, I just want to go back and live there because it just feels so lovely to do this every day. And it's like, we also have to learn to be practical. How can I make myself function in real life? And it's the same for self-esteem as well. And that really matters. It really does. So, so as I said, we often go a bit mad around this self-critical voice. And the antidote to that is always compassion. It really is. And you might not be able to say it to yourself. But one thing I do sometimes is, or I have done, or it's an exercise I give a lot of my clients, is start writing the critical comments down one side of a page, on the opposite side of a page, cross them out and try and think of something else you could say in a way that was a little more compassionate. Maybe not, woo, you go, Glen Coco. I like, that's not quite the right phrase either, but I was reminded of Mean Girls too much over Christmas because my daughter bought loads of cards. So like, it's too much if we're like, yeah, go girl. It is too much, especially if you're English. The English just do not go to that level. So the question is, how do I become compassionate in a calmer, gentle way that says, yeah, that's good enough. That's all right. I'll take that one. That's okay for me right now. And that's the way to start building our self-esteem because it makes us feel better. York Primal says, I saw a good one I'm considering doing this year, and that's to get a jar, a box, and every time something good, positive happens, write it down and put it in the box. When you're down, you can pick things out of the box to read or leave it to the end of the year to see how good your year has been. Completely agree with that sort of thing. So that's positive memory jars. Make the jar yourself, decorate the jar you want to yourself. You can have a book with it in, you can have lots of bits of paper with it in, you can stick them in an envelope. You can get other people to write them for you about things that you've achieved, things that you've done, and things you mean to them. A lot of people, if you've got on a psychology course, do it for you at the end. There are so many ways of doing that. When I was at Summit last year for cheer, one of the things I got all the cheerleaders to do was to get one of those positive pill boxes. I don't know if you've seen them. They're jars with little pills, and you open a pill up, and inside there's a bit of paper, and you write something positive. So I got the kids to write something positive and something a bit farcical. You roll it back up really tight and you put the pill. And when you're feeling really hard and horrible and not okay on yourself, you have to swallow a pill. So you take a pill out, you have to unwrap it, and you have to really engage with it and listen to it. And then you roll it back up and you put it back in and you take that pill. So you can buy loads of those positivity type pills. So your primal, I would totally agree with that one. That's a really good one to do. Look, DBT is still going to be one of the best things you can do. I harp on about it all the time, and I tell everybody to buy any of these sorts of cards. I've got 2 sets of card decks. They're really good. But the acronym that's going to make a difference to around your self-esteem is the FAST acronym. So we want healthy choices, healthy consequences. So FAST, the FAST acronym from Marsha Lynham, starts with F. And F is about be fair to yourself and fair to others. What is the need in this situation? What is the need for you? It's also about being assertive. It's also about speaking your truth. It's also about saying, hey, this is where I am. Fairness is not always niceness. I talk about that on my Think acronym when I write on FetLife. Being kind isn't always about being gentle or sweet. Sometimes being kind or being fair is also about assertion, and that also means no, you're wrong, and you're wrong because, or that isn't nice and I'm not going to take that one because. So it really is a case of being fair. Is an interesting word, isn't it? What does the word fair mean to you? How would you use it? What would you do? A is about fucking apologies. Oh, fucking apologies. Honestly, I must have apologized on Christmas Day about, I think I really pissed people off because I think I might have hit over 100 times saying how much I fucked the food up. I didn't. The food was fine. I cooked cheese wrapped in bacon. I cooked sausages wrapped in bacon. I did roast potatoes in meat juices. I did roast potatoes out of meat juices. I did the roast vegetables and they were fine in the end. And that's things like parsnips and peppers and everything else as well. I also steamed fucking peas and carrots and broccoli and sweet corn, and I made the turkey, and I made fish for my dad, and I made gravy, and I did Brussels sprouts, and I must have made about 6 puddings. Like, fuck off, Deb. You're being a bit of a twat to yourself. So maybe F should also be fuck off, especially around the apologies, but it's not. It stands for fair. Rose Ashford, the thing about the CBT court system, I'll come back to that one in a minute. So I add to that a little bit. So I've got a little bit more on that one. So remind me in a minute, Rose, I'll come back to that one. So no apologies. Stop with the apologies. Look, if you are born with a vagina as well, you are way more likely to apologize than anybody else. Really think about, instead of the way you speak with an apology, how can you speak with an opinion and a disagreement and be okay about that? Because we're not brought up in that way often. And it isn't all women and it isn't all men. I'm not saying that. And that doesn't include non-binary and it doesn't include trans. I'm talking about the whole fucking world. If you are an apologizer, have a go at not doing that this year and see what that feels like. Experiment with that a little bit. So where was I? FAS. S stands for stick to your values. You're really important. I have a whole writing on values on FetLife. If you don't know how to do your values, that writing will help you. You can look it up. You can see where you go with working out your values. Your values are different to your goals. Your goals are things you want to achieve. They're more to do with confidence, maybe, than self-esteem. So your values are more about your self-esteem. What matters to you? What do you want to put forward as a human being this year? How do you want to show the world who you are? And how do you hold on to that? Your values really matter. And if you abandon your values or your ethics for the sake of somebody else or other people, you actually will end up not liking yourself because you're people pleasing again and you start to feel awful and it's not good. FAST. So the T stands for truth, truthful. Don't make an excuse. You don't have to excuse your behavior. Look, if you're a cunt, of course you might have to. But I'm not talking about you being a cunt. I'm talking about you sticking to what you know, feeling okay about what you're sharing. You don't have to lie. You don't have to be more than you are. And you don't have to apologize and be less than you are. So the FAST acronym can be really handy for us. That's about fairness. It's about apologies. Fucking stop it. Let's bring the fucking F in again. Stick to your values. Don't over-compromise, because your self-esteem will start to ruin as well when you start to over-compromise. You're trying to please others and you're trying to conform. And this is such a problem when it comes to BDSM and polyamory. It really is, because I'm going to abandon everything I think I want and I know by pleasing this dominant. And I've only just met this person I've known for 5 fucking minutes. I don't owe them anything, but hell, I know I'm just going to abandon half of my fucking principles. Why? What have they done to deserve you? And it's the same when you're dominant as well. Are you going too far? Are you trying to show someone you're something you're not? Well, good luck keeping that up, because you can't. Most BDSM, power exchange, and relationships like that don't go over 2 years when it comes to a continuous play, when it comes to a continuous action. They tend to dissipate off. They become much more vanilla. So it's really important that we start slow, we build up, and we can keep it going. It really, really does help. So what sort of self-esteem issues are people likely to have? What is it likely to do? We tend to focus on things like our bodies. You know, oh God, if my tits were a bit higher and pulled up, if my eyelids were a bit less saggy, if I was a bit bigger, if my arse was a bit bigger, if my stomach was a bit smaller, if my legs were a bit longer. Okay, you're going to break your hips and your bones. What are you going to do? If my penis was a bit bigger, if my vagina was a bit tighter, if my asshole could spread to 3 foot wide and I could drive a bus up there. Like, for fuck's sake, it's really interesting what we do to ourselves. The real brat. I stopped people pleasing and did what I believe is right. And though I felt pressure, still I feel better standing by my values. Of course we feel better. And if that means I lose people, it's not really a loss anymore. Well, you're not losing people that care about you. Look, if we go too far, which I sometimes think we can here, so sometimes we go too far out this way. It's like a one-way Newton's cradle. We also need someone to say, you're going too far. There is some people pleasing in life. There is some having to conform. There is some having to fit in. And if we get lost in this principle of, no, it's all about me, actually we can go too far. So we need good friends to say, you're being a twat. Oh, okay, sorry, I'll turn it down a bit. So we need both. But we also need friends to say, fucking hell, step up and look after yourself. Why are you agreeing with them? They are being a cunt. And it really is okay to have that opinion. We can be really obsessed with our speech, our teeth, our looks, our eyes, our hair. So body issues are a really, really big deal. We can be frustrated about our success and who we are as a human being. We can get very angry about that. It's not fair. They're much more successful. They've got more money. They've got better dogs than I have. Cosmopolite looks like they're living a fucking fantastic life with their dogs right now. That's not fair. And we can have a go at ourselves instead of saying, that's really cool for that human being. Isn't that lovely? And I have this. We tend to go with either or and but. Not healthy. We can be obsessed with perfectionism. I need to get that right. Oh God, I'm more qualified as a therapist than most people I know. I have a normal degree. I have an MBA. I have an MSc. I have about 7.5 postgraduates. I've stopped at doing 2 fucking PhDs. Like, I know what that shit is about. It's about my dad always saying, you've got to be more qualified. You've got to be more. You've got to be more. And it's exhausting. You don't need to be more. I don't need to be as qualified as I am to do what I do. Do I like it and does it help me? Yeah, but it isn't everything, is it? Because everyone has a different definition of success. So success might be the way you look. Success might be the way you feel. And that's one of the first things you can do if your self-esteem is low. Define what success even looks like to you. Is it around the board? So if you were to define success like as a clock, and you put lots and lots of different things around, and then you draw a line to each of those points in that clock, and then you draw like a spider's web to say where you are. Which ones are missing? Which ones are too close to the middle? Which ones can you extend? Which ones are already out there? Is success your car? Is success your house? Is success speaking 13 languages? Is success being a nice human being? Is success having money or achievements? Is success having a decent relationship or relationships? Is success having good sex? Like, what the fuck is success to you? Is it having a great pair of tits? Control freak. Honestly, it's a really interesting thing to do. If you define success all the way around, you don't have to just stick with 12. You could have 30 on this clock face. Draw lines to each of them and draw a spider's diagram around it. See what is lacking for you. Also, the thing I'm going to invite you to do is to question each one. Why do I define that success? And is it mine or is it my family's? Is it my culture's? You know, you go to culture. So like I had a group of cheerleaders staying a while ago, and one of the girls was from Hawaii. And oh God, her culture really came into how she was around my house. She is used to a big family. Everybody steps up. The culture is to help, is to be beneficial to others, is to be kind and to give. And oh my God, she ticked all of those boxes. What can I do? Can I help? I put that stuff there. What else should I do? And do you know what? In the end, I said, I love you and you can fuck off and go away and do nothing and get someone else to do something. That's what you can do. And she looked at me like I was mad. And I said, I value you whether you do something or not, but you're doing everything. And that's okay, because I understand that that's your need and that's who you are. And I really appreciate who you are. They haven't done anything yet. I'm not saying who it was, if I can come here and help you load the dishwasher. Okay, he says, like, so, completely different forms of culture that can get in the way. So it's really important to ask those definitions as we put them on our clock face. Why are they there? Whose are they? Are they mine, or are they something that I've eaten over the years? It could be you just want a really decent relationship with your family. How do you get that? What are you willing to compromise? And I do think as well, we can't just think of ourselves in these scenarios. We've got to work out, what is it I can give as well as take here? How do we meet in the middle with different people at different times? Of course, we can feel worthless, but how do we measure worth? Again, another really important question when it comes to self-esteem. What is your worth? Is it a value in what you do, or is it a value in who you are, or how you are, or when you are those things? What does it mean? My worth comes into these workshops. I really love doing them. I think it's really important to me to do something for people, to do something for others. I like that. That's part of my value set, is to give back. And I want to give back to my own community. So it doesn't matter whether 10 people or 100 people turn up. It matters to me that I do a little bit at a time. And that helps for me. One of the other ways that worthlessness and self-esteem comes in is oversensitivity. We just can't manage anything that we hear, think, feel, experience, because it's all a bit too much. So we get very anxious and very fearful, and we get really stuck in some of the situations. And that's not healthy for us. That doesn't help either. Also, if you're really angry, people think anger is there for very different reasons. Actually, anger is often, so I often say to people, it's like being shot with a bow and arrow. When you are shot the first time, like if your back goes or something awful happens, the first time that it happens, you stick very much with, oh, this bad thing has happened. I wonder what's going to happen now. When that bad thing happens again for the second or the third time or the fourth time, you're not shot with one arrow. You're shot with all the experiences that you had through that. And actually, you might be really fucked off with being shot, or you might be really scared of being shot. And you start predicting this future and how it's going to happen. That really matters as well. And if you are a fawner and a people pleaser, that often comes from trauma. I have a copied and pasted writing all about that sort of trauma response that's known as fawning, and it's all about people pleasing. I warn people when they come to see me, actually, as a therapist, you might be changing a lot of your friends. Your friendship circles, your support groups actually might go out the fucking window, especially with me as a therapist, because I'm so challenging. My style is quite challenging as well. So if those friends are just there to use you and they're not particularly comforting or kind and they don't give back, look, again, with self-esteem, life isn't 50-50. To think, I spoke to a couple very early this morning. I started at 7 and we were speaking about polyamory, and she kind of made the comment of, but he's had those many hours with that person. I want that many hours with that person. I went, fuck me, you've got to stop that shit right now. I think those were my actual words. It was very therapeutic as an intervention, right? You've got to stop that shit now. That shit isn't going to work. Just because they've had 8 hours doesn't mean you can. Life gets in the way of that. Life is never 50-50 when you're in with a 2 or a 3 or a 4 or a 5. It doesn't work that way. Sometimes our needs are greater. It might be 90-10. It might be fucking 99-1 sometimes. But the principle is that it comes backwards and forwards at different times, depending on who's got the greater need. And that's really important for self-esteem. Learning to give, learning to support, learning to volunteer, learning to help. And if our self-esteem develops into self-loathing, fuck me, we're not going to manage even the smallest of things. We become very intolerant and very hateful. I have to watch this around my dad. He's just got his hearing aids, so he can actually hear now. Oh, that's really dangerous. Fucking hell, the fact that he can hear the shit I say about him to my sister and other people, shit, that's dangerous. I've got to be really careful. But that discomfort and dislike I feel has built up over the years because his self-esteem is so far up his own fucking arse. Everything he does is right or brilliant, and he's just so self-focused. So we can go too far the other way as well. And if we get so obsessed with who we are and being perfect and getting everything right, we lose ourselves. You've lost yourself. You're involved in a ritual. You're involved in something that says this is the expectation of where I've got to get and how. It's not actually who you are anymore. It becomes a performance. So that's not very good. We don't tend to see ourselves as valuable when our self-esteem is low. So we start to really go for that. Lots of reasons for low self-esteem, lots of reasons that it can happen. Of course, it can be your sexual orientation. That's really important for us. Oh God, I'm not feeling so great, you know, fucking hell, you know, I am poly or I am queer and I've got this and I've got that going on. And they're all things that are judged and we feel really bad about ourselves. Control freak says, well done, I had a go at both my mum and dad not having hearing aids that worked earlier today. We've been telling my dad turned around and said, these are amazing. I should have got them a while ago. I went, yeah, Sammy and I have only been telling you for 15 fucking years. That was my comment at the time. And he said, I heard that. And I went, you were supposed to. And Ruby says, I'll never give my mother hearing aids when she gets old. I really get that. So it can be our culture. It can be our environment. It can be our sexual preferences and orientation. You can feel very ashamed for being kinky, for being gay, for being queer, for being different, you know, to whatever the norm is, whatever that is. And I think for us, we forget what the norm is. When you think only roughly 6% of the UK population are queer and less are poly, even though poly is becoming more popular, statistically it's around 4%, and there are a few more people into kink, but they're not into kink. They're into kinky sex, like your 50 Shades of Grey. Are they really into kink? Different. And are they into the lifestyle, actual power exchange? A shit ton less. Because I surround myself with these human beings, I think it's 96%. So we have to remember that it's not. And that can have a big impact on us as well. It might be our race, our ethnicity, our religion. Those things can come into it as well. So how do we feel about those things? How, if we're always put into a category and always trodden on and downtrodden and can never get out of that, where do we go with that sometimes? It could be our gender, like we're so unhappy with our gender. It could be that we're fed up with being women in a patriarchal society. It could be that I don't fit in my body. I want to transition. It could be that I don't really know who I am. It could be that I'm non-binary. There are lots of things that really impact our self-esteem there as well. It can be age. I'm aging. It's really interesting to age. I've only got 2.5 years till I'm 60. That feels so old, but I'm sure I'm still only really 20. I know that I'm not, but I am. I don't get it. Like, what happened? Where did that go? My eldest daughter is 30 this year, or next year, this year that's coming. Off. What happened? She came out of my vagina yesterday. I'm not sure where that time went. Fuck me. Like, it can be really shocking to get older. And it can be really shocking if we've changed body type, if we've become incredibly tiny, we've got no boobs, or, you know, a lot of weight has come off us, or we've got too much skin, or we haven't got enough weight. That, you know, that, or it could be that we're too big, too small. There is no right around these things. It's just how we feel internally about ourselves. So on average, what's interesting is when we start to hit our adolescence and we go into middle age, for most of us, a lot of the time, self-esteem starts to rise, even if it's very, very slowly. So when we start to get into our 30s and 40s, our self-esteem is on the increase again. Not for everybody all the time, clearly. However, age makes us care less about what other people think. But the research shows, especially for women, it will decline around the age of 60 because they become invisible, because maybe they're worried about finances, and lots and lots of different things. So that is for all genders and especially women, the invisibility of that. You can also argue that the amount of rape and matricide goes up after the age of 60 as well. You're much more likely to be murdered or raped when you start to hit 60 as a woman, which is quite a shocking thing to find out, isn't it? It's because you're an easy target. If you're not walking very fast or you're not very capable, it makes it easier as a target. Doesn't menopause make it decline earlier? I think that can make us question ourselves. But it's our incapacity and inability. If you have your self-esteem tied up in your fertility and having periods and being a woman, and that is a very strong identity, you know, I am Mother Earth, then yes, that will have a bigger impact on you. It certainly didn't affect mine particularly. Oh, fucking blessing, Jesus Christ, I'm not bleeding anymore. That's amazing. I'm not sneezing, and out pops a clot the size of a fist. It's a fucking miracle. Loved it, still do. I'm quite happy about that. But for some of us, again, it's so individual and personal. So we really have to watch age when we get a bit older. And of course, menopause starts at so many different ages for different people as well. That makes a big difference as well. So what's interesting as well, in Western cultures, women report lower levels of self-esteem compared to men. I understand the research isn't hitting non-binary and other people yet. I'm sorry about that. This is what the studies tell us. However, in different cultures, and not just this Western, first world culture, women have a very similar self-esteem to men. And I find that interesting. Why is that? Well, social media positioning, patriarchy, all of those things make a big difference as well. Humour, community involvement actually involve and increase self-esteem. The more we can involve ourselves and have a better time with people, the more obese we are, and the more we're bullied at school, the more likely our self-esteem is to be lower. So that has a big impact as well. What's interesting in a lot of the research is Asian American children or students, younger people, tend to have the lowest self-esteem. And when you think about cultural pressure on success, be the doctor, so like as a Jewish woman, you're not it unless you've got a doctorate, and you're not okay. You really have to have, you have to be a mum, you have to be married, you have to have quite a few children, and could you also have a doctorate, and can you also be a really successful lawyer or doctor or some kind of surgeon. There is a lot of pressure on some cultures for people to become certain things, and if we don't tend to pick into those or do those things, that's really not good for us. So students have different levels of self-esteem depending on who they are. What can you do about those things? Fuck me, I've spoken about this for 48 minutes. This is mental. We will come to other ones, I promise. And practicing mindfulness can really help, and practicing gratitude, looking around. On social media, one of the problems we have is we tend to look around and up. I want what that person's got. They've got the best car. They've got this. But is that under your definition or your clock face around success? Is it just about the car and the house, or is it about relationships, or is it about your relationship with yourself? Is it about your relationship with your family? Is it about your body and feeling well, not necessarily slim or fat or medium? I don't fucking give a shit. I don't. Is it just about feeling healthy? Is it about being able to go for a walk or get up the stairs? What is it about for you? What is success? So we need to practice mindfulness. We need to say, who am I and where am I and how is this going to help me? That makes a big difference. We need to change our story. The story you tell yourself is who you become. You are your own writer of your own story. And that makes such a big difference. I know I wanted to come back. I think it was Rose. You talked about the CBT and the court system asking for evidence. Well, there's a book which I absolutely hate, and I wrote about it the other day. It's to do with manifestation. And a woman called Katie wrote it, and she had these principles in it. And I don't agree with the book at all. I don't like manifestation when it's all about, you can win the lottery if only you think right. You will be a millionaire tomorrow if only you think right. Those things aren't helpful to any of us. Positive thinking is good. Ridiculous positive thinking. I thought I was going to win the lottery over Christmas. It didn't work for me. I'm sure I bought some tickets. Fuck that. It becomes ridiculous. So manifestation, when it's used positively and well, can be good for us, but most people have sold it in a very different way. But I took some of her questions and I bastardized them a little to make them a little bit different, although that isn't the best of phrases either, so I apologise if that offended anybody. But I've had a go at them and changed them to make them my own. You're talking about, can you prove it in a court? The question system I use is that true? And your first answer, we're talking about subjective. If we go, yeah, it is true. It's absolutely true. Okay. Is it true? Subjectively. What do you mean? Well, you've told me it's true, and I really appreciate and I hear that it's true for you. Is it true for everybody? Could you prove that to me in a court of law? Could you prove that to me in a biology lab? Would everyone else, would a jury agree with you? No, probably not. And we never want that no to be okay. It's never, no, of course not. It's always, no. It's never an easy no. And then what we've got to ask ourselves is, what is it you get out of the yes? How does the yes work for you? Why is that? And that's a lovely little technique just to use. Could you prove it? It is true. Okay. I'm a bit of a twat. Is that true? I'm sorry. I'm in my own one. I am a woman. I have got one. Does that make me one? Am I just my twat? Well, no, of course I'm not. A biology lab would really disagree with that. So what do you mean by the word twat? Well, I'm just being a bit of an idiot. Oh, that's an interesting word. Are you an idiot? Well, yeah. No. Are you an idiot? Well, no, of course not. And it's like, why do we talk to ourselves like that? We need to change our story. If you tell a child that if we go up to a little girl and we say, oh, you're so pretty, look at you in your pigtails and your beautiful dress. And then we go up to a little boy and we say, you are so strong, you are so cool. Ah, you're amazing. Fuck me. What's the achievement of this one to this one? We need to lift children up and give them a better story, especially we need to make it equal and even. You are awesome. Look at you go. It's so different to, you look so pretty in your dress, because it also is conditional. So if you talk about transactionalities, we talk about conditional positives and conditional negatives. So if we say to somebody, you are fucking amazing, you are strong, you are powerful. Look, if somebody doesn't believe that, actually becomes a negativity in somebody else's head. But when we're talking about a young child, they don't disagree from a young age. I am strong. I am so cool. I am amazing. They're unconditional positives. However, what most children get, conditional positives, you are so clever. You got 97% in your test. You are such a good boy. You tidied your bedroom. You are such a good girl. You did your homework. They become conditional. You're only good if you fulfill the conditions. And if you think about that, that's most of us. Then there are conditional negatives. Really? Only 97%? What happened to the other 3? Never mind. Oh, Coke. Isn't that the fat one that you're drinking? I mean, wouldn't you be better off if you had a Coke Zero? Boom, straight in. And then unconditional negatives are definitely the worst. You're a fucking worthless little cunt piece of shit or whatever they are, not nice. So we need to change our story to be unconditional, to say, I am okay here. Not to go into the, woo, I am really cool and I am wonderful and I'm fantastic. When I'm working with athletes, one of the worst things I can say to them is, come on, you can do it. Because they're going, yes, I can. And inside they're going, I really fucking can't. So all I'm doing is reinforcing the negative with a positive because it's too false for them. They can't do it. I can say, I've watched you do this many times. I have no reason to believe why this won't happen. It's all about your head. You know what your body's doing. Trust your body. Go with the flow. Think about other things. Do your 2 times table and start to go. Start to breathe differently. Say your ABC as you start to go. You take up their mind with something else and then they achieve it. And you go, yes, good job. It's a good job. It's not you're fantastic. It's a good job. That took some work. You had to do it. You have to think slightly differently and outside the box. You also can't compare yourself to others. When you are comparing, to who? To how? Like, I can look at some friends sometimes and think, relationship. Or I can think, they've got the perfect life. I can think, oh my God, look at that. That looks so amazing. Like, Kim Kardashian married Kanye West, and the world was all okay because they were so happy and they were the whole complete idea of perfection. And she's a really successful businesswoman. Oh shit, their marriage is broken up. Why did that happen? Oh, he's not well. He's not completely stable. Is he okay? I mean, he's even voting for Trump. What is going on? That's very personal. Perhaps I shouldn't say that here. Oh, she's not so good. Oh. And we start to dissolve our world because we're comparing to somebody who lives in a very interesting mausoleum of a house, but the toy room has so many toys in it. It's crazy. Why are we comparing to that? We compare to the 1% of the world who has everything instead of the majority of the world that doesn't even have an inside toilet. That doesn't help. And that also means we can be grateful for the things that we have, even if they're very small. When my kids were little, one of the exercises they had to do at the last year of school is they had to write their own superhero out. Develop your own superhero that's you. You need to develop your own superhero. Who are you? Who do you want to be? What are your secret powers? What are you good at? What would somebody else say you're good at? What would somebody else say, hey, this is your superpower? If you had to write a superpower about yourself, what would it be if you were to write it here? who's your rock star? Who's your pop star? Who are you inside? How do we help with that? We need a little bit more exercise and movement, a little bit more just shifting around. We know that dancing and singing impacts our endocannabinoid system. We know that that lifts us. We know that that makes a difference, even if you're really bad at singing. It doesn't matter. It's just really good for you. We know that movement is really good for us as well. So that makes a difference. We know that blaming the world makes us a victim. So our self-esteem starts to decrease and it actually gets worse, because what it creates is powerlessness. And if you're powerless, how can you believe in yourself? Because you haven't got any power. You always have to look for the power that you've got. Moon says, I've said for years, my hero is myself. Captain Moon Siren, what are your secret powers? Are you willing to tell us? What can you do better than anyone else? What do you aspire to be? All of those things really matter, but they need to be achievable. If you put down, I want to fly around the world and stop time, you might be setting yourself up for failure there. Have a look at the things that you can do that make a real difference. And I think one of the most important things that we don't do around self-esteem is we make our circumstances who we are. We define ourselves. Why not turn around and say that I'm not my circumstances? It isn't about me that I don't have enough money or different things. You know, I'm going to pick on Kim Kardashian again. Damn, she's in for it today. But when she turned and said, you just need to work harder. If you earn £9 an hour and you work harder, even if you work 24 hours a day, you cannot work and get any more than you're getting. It is about different ways of doing things. I aspire to be annoying to bad people. Define bad people and define annoying. And can you always achieve it? That's the problem, isn't it? Only to bad people. Oh, there's a little bit of relationship there, I think, and a little bit of history. Superpowers, walking a path of living for me. What does the path look like? What does living mean? Really define your shit, people. This is, you know, it's so important. That mindful can help us learn the present moment. You know, when we're anxious, we get caught in an infinity loop whereby we say, this has happened, therefore that's going to happen. And this infinity loop follows us wherever we go and stops us from doing something instead of just staying right here. Right now, you're sitting in a room listening to me, or you're outside listening to me. Nothing bad is happening, not really. Unless you hate the shit I'm spouting, that might be completely different. It's all about catching that negative talk, that stuff in our head that says you're not okay, you're not enough. And it's really important that we do that. If we build self-esteem in kids by being attentive, by being kind, by making them feel that they're special, by being a positive role model, by trying to understand where they're coming from, that's what we need to be doing for ourselves as well. We just need to take a time out and say, how can I be my best role model for me right now? What would the best me do? And it might not be that the best is best. It might be slightly more than I am right now because I'm really struggling. If I were in a different place, what could I do? And of course, that's facetious, isn't it? If you don't have the energy and you're not feeling very well, maybe you can't. And maybe you can just have half a banana. I can manage that much. Or you can put cuckoo clocks on that sounds really cute. Makes me smile every time I hear it. So how do we help ourselves is really important. What would I do if I were a child? How would I do it? Emily Roberts did a really interesting piece of research where she asks questions. If you can look them up, it was a piece of research in 2016. Emily Roberts, they're her confidence and self-esteem questions. And they can really help. Let's have a think about what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. What are some things you can do right now to balance yourself? How would you feel if you did this? And one of the things when I worked in an eating disorders clinic is I got people to write 2 letters to themselves in 3 to 4 months' time. Which one do you want to be able to read? Which one will help you? Which one? And how do you stick to that? I'm on a very slow weight loss. I've lost 2 stone currently. But it's really slow. I'm doing it really slowly. And I'm really changing the way I'm thinking about food and what it does for me and how I want to feel in the future and what it means. Is that easy? No. Can I do it easily? No. I really fucking struggle with it. I hate it. I think it's a cunt load of bollocking waste of time piss. I hate it. However, I don't want to get cancer, or I don't want to have cancer back. Thank you very much, Control Freak. So for me, my motivation is my health. It's not my looks. I think I'm fucking amazing and I'm sexy as fuck. I don't give a shit about my weight when it comes to that. Mine is about, you just don't want cancer. I don't want to go through that again. So you have to think about these things. And you also remember what I said about tiny steps. How do you go back to one very tiny thing that you can do? So if you have a look at Emily Roberts, I'm just going to write her down. You can look up her 16 questions. Was it 16 or 15? I don't know. But the piece of research was in 2016. Maybe I'm getting those mixed up. And they're self-esteem questions. If you can look them up, you'll find them somewhere. Self-esteem questions, there you go. That's something you can look at. So have a look. What are the small things that we can do? How do I develop a stronger relationship with myself and with others? Hers talks about family and friends and co-workers. Mine says you. Start with you. Be your own friend. Be your own dom. Be your own sub. How do you start with you and make a real difference? Because those things really matter. They really do. How can you reach out and do something nice for a friend today? Because if you do that, that friend will do something nice for you one day, or they'll just appreciate it and you can feel good about that. How can you deepen a relationship with a family member? I had a go at my youngest daughter because she is really tight on money at the moment, like she's really struggling. However, they do a secret Santa with their dad, and there are 5 girls there. And the idea is that instead of spending 10 or 20 pounds on each, you just spend maybe 40 or 50 and one person gets a really nice present. And Brian got Erin this time. And Erin said, can you get me some like pick and mix? And I looked at her and I said, no, you're not getting a pick and mix for a tenner. The whole idea of this is you give a little bit more. She went, I know, but I went, no, this is a time about, and it was really interesting, the conversation that I had. And actually, we worked it out. She's got this lovely little bracelet that she's putting it in a box of pick and mix. So it's in there. She feels so good about having done that now rather than negative. How can we do things that make a difference? And it does help us. So it is worth building up your self-esteem slowly. As far as quantitative goes, you are the only one who can look at yourself for yourself. You're the only one who can measure those things. It's all about self-compassion. You can look up self-compassion exercises. It's about being kinder. And what you need to look at is every day. So years ago, I was doing this show called Disco Inferno with a group of kids, and it was set in the 70s, and I had the clickers, you know, like for nightclubs that got to 999 and reset. And I was working on Harley Street at that time as well, and I asked a majority of my clients to take them home if they wanted to do a little experiment, just to click it how many times they said something negative. Now, by negative, we defined it as even a word. Oh, stupid. Or shouldn't have done that. Oh, I did. Ugh. Even those little sighs. Click, 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 click. Do you know what the average was? Average, not the top, not the bottom, the average was 720 times a day. It was really shocking to me to realise. Like, I remember burning some bread once, some toast, and going, oh, fucking idiot. And I remember Erin, she was about 15, it's about 9 years ago, and she said, really, mother, is that the way you would advocate talking to yourself as a therapist? And I said, no, of course not, Erin, fuck off. Because I burnt my eggs and I burnt the toast, and we had a laugh about it. She's right, though. I'm not an idiot. I've got fucking plenty of letters after my name to prove I'm not an idiot. But it's so interesting. It's the first place you go to when you do something wrong. Maybe you don't. I did. It's really important that we catch ourselves doing these things to make a difference. Okay. I've covered the self-esteem one. What would you like to cover? What sort of changes do you want to make in the new year? What kinky goals, psychological goals, what other goals do you have that we could discuss today that can make a real difference, that might help you as well? So what do you have that you would like to look at? Over to you. I said it would take you as well today. So what questions do you have that you say, I would like to look at this? How do I do this? Can't say I know the answer, but I might do. What questions have you got that you would like to change? I'm waiting so patiently. Moving on from issues with ex-friends. Tell me what that means. So I want to move on from issues with ex-friends. If they're ex-friends, is it how to put something to bed? Is it how to stop something? Is it how to stop thinking about it? Aaron says, me too. Okay, that's interesting. So what does that question mean? Do you see what I'm asking? They're the real brat. So let me know what you mean by that. Stop thinking about it, how to deal with it if they are at an event. Okay, so when you've got an ex-friend, have they done something to you? Have they let you down? Have they done something aggressive? Are they dangerous? Have they done something to somebody else? One exercise when you want to stop thinking about things is you set yourself a time. So this is one exercise you can do. When you are overthinking about certain things, one thing you can do is get yourself a set of Post-it notes. How prepared am I? That's amazing. Right, so if you've got, oh dear, I've just dropped something, I don't know what it is. So I stick to my boundaries now. So, okay, so let me do those one by one. So if you are overthinking about something, get yourself a set of Post-it notes. One of the things that you can do that really helps, this is like overthinking when you're in bed as well. So when you're overthinking and your mind's going, what you want to say is, thank you very much to your brain. You're really helping me out here. I'm overthinking about this. So what do I need to do now? So what I need to do is I need to write down all the thoughts I'm having. I take the Post-it note and I put them out and I say, right, this is where I am. This is what I'm thinking about. What I'm going to do is it's 10 o'clock at night. I'm really tired. I'm going to bed. I promise you that I will, as your brain, have a look at that at 10 past 10 in the morning. So what we have to do is at 10 past 10, we have to start looking at those things. So what you're going to train your brain to do is to think about these things at a certain period of time, rather than continuously thinking about them. Because when we continuously think, you're torturing because you're not getting an answer. And then when you look through those Post-it notes, the idea is that that's just shit. I don't even need to know the answer to that. That's important. That's one I need to take to somebody I really trust and I really love. This one, I think I can answer. What can I do about that? So you start to train your brain to think about things at certain times. If you're overthinking as well, often what you're looking for is an answer. There is not one. When you become obsessed with something or someone, and what you want is the answer. So many people come into therapy and say, no, I want to know why. So do I. I'll tell you what, the statistical likelihood of me ever finding out why is fucking unlikely. We are not going to find out that when you were 3, you were dropped on your head and it was a Tuesday afternoon. And actually, what does it fix? So I would imagine, in this case, the real brat, that you're asking yourself some questions that you can't actually answer, and that you believe that the answer will give you something. And actually, it won't. You can't answer it. So actually, what life becomes is, how do I live with uncertainty? How do I think about those things in a different way? The reason I'm asking is because of this person came live and caused lots of issues, and also came into my room at a time I'd usually be asleep, and stopped dead, walked out without speaking. It's caused me some issues. So the question is why and how, and what are the issues, and what can you undo? What power can you take back? If it's somebody in your room, can you put a lock in the room? Can you put a towel across the bottom of the room so the door won't open? Can you put something in front of it so you can protect yourself? Because you cannot control other people and what they do. So what things can you put in line for your safety? Can you put a FaceTime on? Can you put a camera on? Can you put a noise recording on in your room so you've got proof for certain things if you're worried about what's going to happen? Can you confront the person? Can you say, don't ever do that again? And maybe you can't. I don't know what happened and I don't know who the person is or was. So how do we manage those things? I don't know if you've answered. Let me have a look. I struggle sleeping with anyone else around. We are no longer around. However, I worry about my response at event to them. I think you can also check that they're going to an event. What are you worried about? Are you worried that you're going to have some triggering response? Are you worried that you're going to run away? Because actually what you need to do is tell a couple of friends and they need to hold you there. I'm going to be really horrible here. Hold you there. So actually, the more use you get to them being around, the less power they have. At the moment, you're giving them power. Do you want them to have power? And if you don't want them to have power and you're saying, no, it's really important, say, right, I'm going to sort out how this works and what this means. I'm going to take control of this. I want to make a difference for myself. I'm going to go into that. And if you've got someone like Bella with you, or someone like Poppy with you, or somebody else as well, how do I do that? And that's really important. How do you do that? You need support from people. You need to learn some breathing techniques. You need to learn some calming techniques, of which I've written a lot for when I'm having a panic attack, to be able to stay present, to make a real difference. I do have good support. So fucking use it and abuse it for a little while. I'll come back to that if I've got time as well. So stop thinking about other lives. Stick to my boundaries more. Leave at the first sight of intentional pushing. Learn my worth. You need to experiment with that one. So I was speaking to somebody. We went on a date. I said to them, do you want to talk over Christmas Day or not? And they said, no, I definitely want to talk. So Christmas morning, I sent them, we always make Mickey Mouse pancakes, and we have loads of fruit and ice cream and maple syrup and icing sugar, or like the gammon I'd made from the night before. You can choose what you have. And that's what we have for our Christmas morning breakfast. It's become a tradition since the kids were really little. So I sent them some pictures of my Mickey Mouse pancake. I always go for bananas and maple syrup and cinnamon over the top. That's my favorite, right? So that's what I had for breakfast. And I sent some pictures, didn't hear anything. I thought, that's a bit strange. We're supposed to go to the pictures tomorrow night. Had quite a nice date. I'm not 100% convinced, definitely worth a second date. Let's see. Nothing. Nothing on Monday, nothing on Tuesday, nothing on Wednesday, until this morning when I get a, hey, sorry, I left my phone at home when I went to my sister's. Oh, shit, I'm sorry. Could you have contacted me in a different way? Yes, you could. You've got my email and you've got the dating site that we met on. Yeah, sorry, I didn't, because when we went on Monday night and I went, hang on a second though, you didn't talk to me from Sunday morning. So what happened on Sunday and Monday? And what I got back as a response was, oh, for God's sake, leave it. Let's just meet on Friday, shall we? No, I don't want to leave it. I would like an explanation. I've already explained. You have about the second half, you haven't about the first. How you respond to this really matters, because it tells me how you're going to communicate later on when things are going to go wrong. Calm down, he says. Let's just meet on Friday. Guess what I did next? Block. We need to act immediately. If that person can't answer a simple question, and the simple question could just be, I fucked up. I was really tired. I couldn't be bothered to reply to you. And I would have said, that's fair enough. I do prefer contact. I did ask you if you didn't want to talk, and we would have had a conversation about it. Calm down. Fuck off, you cunt. Absolutely not. How can you practice holding boundaries? Well, you start with really small boundaries. You start with really small no's. Pick 3 things this week better that you can say no to. 3 really small things. You don't have to explain them, but what you can say is, and this is always a good one, is, oh, I've got a therapist and she's challenged me to say no to 3 things, and I'm really sorry, I've just picked yours. That's a wonderful, easy out, right? That's so easy. You can blame anybody. And then you turn and you go, so I'm really sorry, but I'm going to say no to that. And you can make it a little bit of a joke. And then you can see what happens. Now, do you start meeting new friends or changing things? Yeah. Do you know what? I've looked at some of the things you've done and written this year. You put up with too much, my darling. I know you do. I've watched what's written on some of the things that I know that have happened to you this year. And I'm like, no, that's when you start to say no. Not we're fine, let's go. No. That's when. So if you're not sure, send it to friends who can hold the boundaries and say, what would you do in this scenario? What would you do now? And I really think it's important to always give someone a second chance and a third chance. I've got a client who's just said, oh, I think I'm going to take a little bit of a break. I really need to find myself. And I said, that's absolutely okay for you to do. This is the second time you've done it to me. If you come back again and you do it again, I will never see you again. Just so you know. I have boundaries as a therapist too. And it's okay to hold them. No one gets a third chance. No, that's it. And I'm out. I don't want difficulty in my life. I want my life to be simple, and we only get that by holding boundaries. So what do you define as that? It's really important. So if you can't do it yourself, ask friends. I heard about another person that I know getting involved in a situation, and they went back to see somebody who was really quite abusive to them, and they did it 3 times. I want them to learn to never go back after the first. That's what I want for human beings. I want us to learn to say that isn't good enough, to really understand our trauma responses and to give ourselves a different choice. So I think it's really important. Moon said, finding a BDSM play partner I can trust, which has been so difficult because of how I identify as demisexual. So actually, Moon, I don't know if you mean trust there. Maybe it means that you've got a connection with, to develop a connection first. The likelihood of you finding somebody who is perfectly demisexual as a match is really small. Not only do you want a BDSM partner, you want a BDSM partner who is demisexual. So we have to turn and say, okay, so that's really hard for me to do. What is realistic here? What can I achieve? And you know what? Sometimes what we have to say is, I might not find that. Somebody might want sex up front. Somebody might want play up front. How do I develop trust? What do I mean by trust? And that's horrific because we don't know the answer to all of those things yet. Real Rat said, I'm happy to help you hold boundaries. So am I. Write to me, free of charge. Write to me and I'll say, what the fuck are you doing? Because sometimes that's therapeutic. It's not therapy, but it is therapeutic. There's a difference. Karen says, Maya Angelou, if they show you believe, do you know what? I really believe that. I talk about red flags, but I also talk about green flags. So if you want to hold boundaries, look for green flags instead of red ones. Look for the positivity in what someone's saying to you and how they're doing and what they're doing. But also, don't look for red flags because it gets really blinded by a big red love heart that you're in. You need to start feeling for texture. I know this sounds ridiculous, but sometimes you can't see a red flag because love is all about red, isn't it? Lust is all about red. They're all a fucking red mist. And then we talk about red flags. No wonder we can't fucking see them. Our cunts and cocks are betraying us. Our hearts are bleeding. Everything betrays us. Oh, thank you, Master Jim. That's really kind of you. Everything is betraying you. You need to look for textures and feels and contradictions. So when someone writes something or does something, go, that doesn't quite match that. That's interesting. Should I worry about that? I wonder. That doesn't feel quite right. I know my cunt's gushing here, or I know my cock is dripping, and I know my heart is going, oh my God, I love you. Are they who I want to love? What does this mean right now? So you just need to have those little questions about the textures, the feels, and the main thing is the contradictions. You need to look for them. I love you, babe. But by the way, I have come inside someone else, even though it was unprotected, but I do love you. Let's define love. Does love mean that you respect me? Because it does to me. Does love mean that you want to protect me? Because it does to me. Does love mean that you want to look after me and have my health and my best interests at heart? It does to me. No. Do you get my point, Bella? Do you see, like, go for the textures and the feels and the little questions. It really makes a difference. Tits, I've said that's really interesting as I've got good boundaries this year, and which gives me hope going forward. Brilliant. That's really important. But I still blame my mum for some things. That's okay. That's okay. Yeah, I'm noticing that too. Somebody said, I know, Victor, there's something really strange. Your screen keeps scrambling and doing really strange things and flashing up pictures of me. I'm not sure why, but it's quite jarring to look at. Okay, let's have a look at other few people's ideas. Right, so continuous thinking is exhausting, so set it up. As I said, put it forward, pay it forward, turn around and say, I will do that. Start to put it into a section of time. It really, really, really helps. Okay, so let's see my family more too. No, so I would like to clear my schedule. What stops you? Do you know, often what we do is we fill our schedule up because we're very frightened of having alone time or empty time or other things to do. So you could fill your time with emptiness. If you listen to what Mindfondler said earlier, that actually it wasn't Mindfondler, he said it, he was saying it for his beautiful wife who is sitting next to him. So what she turned around and said was that what I do is I set times for doing nothing. I've had to do the same in my diary. It is okay to schedule in nothingness. Why don't we? But nothingness can be doing something. It's just doing something else. So clearing my schedule, I don't know if we ever do, if we set ourselves up for failure or we set lists up. We've got to be really careful about that. What can we do to help ourselves to do less? A lot of the time, setting your timetable, saying, right, tick, got to do this, got to do this, got to do this. Sometimes it's just good to say, I'm going to spend an hour doing all the jobs I feel I've got to do. And when an hour is done, I'm not going to do anymore. That's it. I've given time to it. So sometimes declaring time for something is more impactful than actually doing a tick list and saying, I've got to get it all done. And in fact, some of the time you find out you end up doing more. Better seeing your family more. Again, what's stopping you? It might be distance. Buy train tickets in advance. Make plans with them. So already I have no plans with my family. Poppy's a really good example for me. She's miles from me. We saw each other a few weeks ago. We now have new plans. My plan in the next week or two is to say to her, when are we seeing each other again? What can we do? Am I coming to you or are you coming to me? You need to plan things in your life. If you want a better sex life, you need to plan it. If you want a better connection, you need to plan it. You've got to put it in and then commit to it. Buy the tickets up front now. I've already gone on, send me a Christmas tree. I'm there looking and they haven't got any there yet, so I have to wait a few weeks because clearly they're not ready. Or I'll put it in my diary for May or April, because if I've done it now, it's definitely going to happen with or without me. It's just great. It just makes life a little bit easier. So it is about planning. That's really much harder if you've got ADHD. It really is. So generally speaking, the bastard strikes. Find other ways. What other ways are there to get there? Because there are coaches. There was a strike for everyone to come down. My kids all made it with a little bit of planning, with a little bit of thought in a different way. It makes a real difference. Thank you, Victor, for turning it off. Bella, crystal clear. Debs, merci beaucoup. Je vous en prie. You're very welcome. So, okay, let's have a look at a few others. It is about planning, and it is difficult because there are terrible things happening, and I agree with the strikes as well. I get it. Okay, so I'm brand new to the scene, Samsung says. I need advice where to start. Need a woman to control me, based in Wiltshire. You are just setting out a classic tick list there that means nothing to anyone, Samsung. I'm really sorry, I'm going to pick on you over that one. I need a woman to control me. What, any woman, any size, any shape, any age, any looks? Come on, be more realistic. You need to look for connection before that. What if you do that and you start to go that way, especially if you're brand new to the scene? What you're looking for is a kink dispenser, and we don't exist as that. We don't owe you anything. If you go in with that as an attitude, you won't find anyone. What you need to do is set up connection with somebody. You need to go to munches. You need to go and meet people. You need to join in different spaces and start writing. And I don't give a shit whether that's FetLife or anywhere else that you want to write, whether it's a place on anywhere. It just doesn't matter. You need to start to connect to human beings. You won't just find a woman to control you. That makes her a kink dispenser. I just can't find a man to control me. Believe me, and I've been doing this for 40 years. That's sort of the way you're saying that won't come across okay. So for me, your New Year's resolution would be, it's an invite. It's not, it's a direction, but it's an invite. But you might like it because it is a direction, because you want a woman to control you. Would be, turn that down. Change the way you're looking for somebody. That human, that woman isn't a kink dispenser. She's not automatically just going to do something for you. And actually, dominant women are sought after. If you want an experience like that, go and pay for it. That's the answer to that one, or develop a relationship. And if you look at 3 or 4 of the people, they were nodding as soon as I said that. It's really important that the attitude becomes, I would like to create connection, and maybe this is part of it. Someone isn't just going to give you what you want. That's like saying, I just want to meet someone for sex. That's rarely successful. I mean, do you know that I'm writing about this at the moment, one-night stands? Like 40% of men on average enjoy a one-night stand. You know what percentage is for women? 16. Still fucking low, isn't it? It's nearly half. It's just over half. It's quite interesting, isn't it? The difference. Again, I get that it's not all inclusive. However, that is the statistic that we've got at the moment. How do we do that? So, Cosmopolite, how do you overcome decision-making paralysis? Sometimes I feel so overwhelmed with making life-changing decisions that I just end up not making a decision. But that is a decision. To do nothing is a decision. So see it as a decision. It's a really cool little trick. I'm deciding to do nothing, and that's okay until I decide to do something. At least own it as a decision. And then start making much smaller decisions. I would quite like to move. I decided to take my house off the market. I'm probably going to put it back on in May, June. I want to sell up. I want to buy a very small place in England. I want to buy this 5-bedroom house in Italy that I've seen. It feels like a huge decision, but there are lots of tiny decisions that are a part of that. So go backwards in the decision-making process and look for the building blocks of what's needed in order to make this decision here, and start here. And please own that if you have decision-making paralysis, it's not paralysis. You're not overwhelmed. You've decided not to make a decision. It can really change the way you think about things sometimes. It can make a difference, and maybe you disagree with that on some level. Maybe that will make a difference. Okay, so let's have a look at some of the others. It's incessant because there always be reasons they seek just by bad behaviour. We've gone that. Resolution idea. Not being overbearing with communication with my son, who shies away from negative, constructive communication. Interesting. So I think I'm still going to go back to one of my best secrets. Ask yourself to write a manual about themselves, about all of these things. Ask yourself if they will engage in something is like an introduction, a manual that says, it's a Haynes manual that says this is what works for me and how and why. And then funny enough, even as they're done, do as they ask for and as they say, and you will get incredible results. I've been asked to do some master slave workshops for the big MAST thing that's coming up soon. And one of the ideas is how to gain obedience and how to gain control. And guess what? It's by playing and working together instead of just telling someone to do something. If we continuously just tell someone to do something, they might do it. If we help someone feel like they want to do it, they'll do it forever. There's a distinct difference. It's like giving someone a fish or teaching them how to fish. It's no good, and it makes the job really, really, really difficult on you. And that's tough. So if we can work out what works for the person, have you asked a simple question of, well, what works for you? So if my communication is overbearing and I'm struggling with this, tell me how you would dom yourself. What would you do here? What would work best for you? How can I listen best to you? How can I motivate you? Talk to me about what you want and what it looks like, and then see if you can amend what you're doing to fit in with what that sub needs at that time. Because it might be that some things need to be overbearing, but it also means that sometimes actually we need to back off and do things slightly differently. We need to look at their language of love. We need to look at their language and methods of communication. It might be that they want more written stuff. It might be that you write them a letter. It might be that you text. It might be that you have to phone. It might be that you have to talk their love language by doing something for them, by saying something to them, by doing things in a certain way that will actually then talk their language, and it will get through better. They will guide you if you give them an opportunity, if that makes sense. It can really make a different thing. And it's just really fucking tiring to continuously dom somebody all the time, unless it's really instinctively in you. So help them help themselves to be good for you as well. So that motivation is also a great idea. My goal is to become more assertive and not slip into people-pleasing behaviours, and to heed red flags instead of going out of my way to give people more chances, which I have especially struggled with in the context of kink and relationships recently. I've stepped back from the scene a little in order to work on this. And at some point, Jazz, you are going to have to step back in and start experimenting with it. Again, pick the small things to say no to. Hey, listen, let's go and have a drink. Yeah, I'm happy to do that, but I just want a Coke. No, you've got to have a drink. Come on, get pissed with me. No, I don't want to. Hold on to some smaller boundaries first of all, so the bigger ones can practice themselves. We tend to go with, no, I'm never going to do that, I don't want to. But you also have to look at the why. Why is it you want to say yes? What will you get from it? So what you're looking for is the pay it forward. If I say yes to this, what do I assume is going to happen? That you'll like me, that you'll love me, that you will want to be with me again. Okay. Is that true though? If I give you this blowjob right now, will it make you want to be with me? I don't know, actually. I don't know. I can't guarantee that. What if it's the best blowjob in the world? Well, they might want the blowjob again, but do they want me? So like, start to question the things and the way that they link up. That will make such a difference. And we can become more assertive when we also know what we want. So if you write out again, even around a clock face, all the things that are really important to you. Look, people aren't tick lists, which I've just said to Samsung before. People can't be tick lists. It's just impossible. We will let people down in some way, shape or form. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when, and then what are you going to do about it? Those things are really important. So if you want to become assertive, you also have to understand yourself. But you also have to understand why you people please. If you look forward, run forward, you're paying it forward here to get what? And will it guarantee that you get what you want? And should someone just like you because you're an awesome human being? Or should someone like you just because of the way you give head? It's an interesting question, isn't it? I'm not so sure about that one. So actually, it doesn't get me what I want anyway. So what do I want and how do I ask for it is really important. And actually, if you're a submissive and or a dominant and or poly, it doesn't matter. It's really important that you know what you want, so you know how to ask for it. And ask friends, do it therapeutically, look for stuff online. But also, ask yourself, I wonder why. What is it I want out of that? What's my long-term goal? What's that forward here? What do I think is going to happen? And then I can work assertively in a slightly different way. Another direct message, I go out and I've met people at kink events. How do I develop relationships that develops into a kink-based one? I know people aren't kink dispensers, but I'm not sure if there are specific things I need to do or say in the early stages of meeting people. I think honesty is really important. Hey, I really like the way we're getting on. I'm definitely looking for someone to play with. I'm looking for something to develop. Is that something you're interested in? People think they're clear. People think they're direct. They say things like, it's not a good time for me. I'm not ready. I didn't hear a no there. What I heard was, it's not a good time for you and you're not ready. So I'll wait for you. How can I help you get ready? No, I don't want you to waste your time. I'm not wasting my time. Sometimes we can enter into an argument instead of having a very clear conversation. So stating what you want up front, I've really enjoyed being with you. Would you be interested in developing something? Of course not yet. I'm not asking you to move in tomorrow. I'm not asking you to have your fist inside my arse by 10 o'clock. Unless you're interested. You can make jokes as well. But it is okay to turn and say, this is great. Can we carry on doing this? I would love to have more conversations about this with a view to. Sometimes we just have to be direct. And actually, most of us aren't. We're not direct enough. We don't ask for what we want. We don't state what we want. I said to somebody earlier, he said, he lives in Milton Keynes, and he said, could we be friends? And I said, no. I'm really sorry, because we'll never meet. Milton Keynes is too far away. One of my best friends already lives in Manchester. The other one is local, but they're really busy. So it's hard enough to try and make those things happen. So I'm really sorry. No, it's okay to do those things. It really is. It makes a difference. But we have to be crystal clear. We have to really work that out. And that makes a real difference. Rose said, Mistress Rose, is it better to maintain calm instead of confronting a person that tries to ruin your name in the community? Said individual doesn't like my house rules to attend private parties, has unfriended on Fit, but still has my husband friended. Who needs a new husband? I would definitely ask my husband to support me on that one. It's always better to remain calm. There's no smoke without fire for a lot of people. I remember once I was sitting at home of an evening, I've told this story before, and up comes my photograph and up comes a link to my website at the time saying, do not let this woman near your two children. She is a paedophile. That's what it said, and it was on my Facebook, and I was just like, I think my heart might stop for a few seconds, and I definitely couldn't breathe. The answer was calmness. Who are you? Why have you written this? I did find out who it was. I found out what it was all about, and that was really important to do. Went to the police because it's slander. They asked them to stop as well. It didn't hurt me, actually. It didn't really make a difference. Now, do I think it's different on the scene? The people that have been to your party, if they like your house rules, they will do a lot of talking for you. You could also ask them to do so. And could you advocate for me, please? I'm really struggling with this person. So I don't want you to fight them, but I do want you to say, hey, Mistress Rose's parties are awesome. You will also and always find people who have a lot to say about how things are done because they don't like other people's rules. So it's easier to have a go and sneer. I think you can put out a statement that's really understanding. Somebody put out a statement the other day as an apology because they basically assaulted and lied to and mucked about with 5 different people on the scene locally to this particular person in the UK. And I wrote and said, this is a fucking smokescreen. This isn't an apology. Tell me what you'll do for reparation. I think if you put something out to say, these are the rules in my house parties, this is really important to me. It's a matter of values, morals, ethics, and principles. I am really okay if you don't like it. It just means it isn't worth you coming. That's really different to saying, well, you're a cunt for saying those horrible things about me. And if you can remain a little bit more dignified and keep that upper hand, often that time will pass. This too shall pass. It's just not an easy time to go through. The drinking thing is a good one. I have broken off speaking to someone offering pressuring me to drink at an event. I mean, fucking hell. It's how passive behaviour that finds husband helps keep track. Okay, that's fair enough. So that can help in its way. Look, when you have somebody who is passive aggressive, or you have somebody who is aggressive, or somebody who's horrible, guess what? They do out themselves eventually because they just keep going for everyone. Everybody will see the truth. They just see it at different times. And that's what's really difficult with another human being. It's allowing that time to take place. Yes, thank you, Deb. That was really useful. It gave me a lot to consider. Saying no to drink is a good starting point. Being pressured to drink is a common occurrence, and often I'd rather just have one drink, not 5. Yeah, I would say that. Okay, I'm very excited about your weekend workshop you mentioned some time ago. Is it happening? Yes, Poppy and I are going to sort that. I want to come, but we're traveling from abroad. Oh my God, that's amazing. Even Poppy's face just went, yes, we are doing it. We are writing them out and like we're sorting it out. We're trying to get the logo going. Yes, so we're going to do these workshops and hopefully they will be exciting. There might be 1 or 2 to do. We're going to do it like a course. And then at the same time, what we're doing is we're going to have like a living book online. So everything that's on the course is going to be on a website, which of course you have to pay for. It's not going to be that expensive. We want to make everything affordable. However, it is also an awful lot of our time and an awful lot of work in, and we're both presenting it. It's both our baby. We're going for it. There is nothing in the UK like it. There are a few things in Vegas and a few other places like the Liver Quest and different things that are the journey that will give people a way and a format to do it. We might also, if you don't want to come over for it, we might also have like an online link and make it work that way as well for people, so that might be easier. And then the idea of this website that you pay for is that every time we write something new, every time we find a new bit of research or anything else as well, we shove it on there, so people, it's forever growing, so people always get the benefit from the latest first aid to everything else as well. So yes, it is happening. Thank you very much for asking, and I really appreciate that. And Mr. Strauss, thank you. I've done all you spoke of. Good to know I'm doing the right thing. Do you know, it's interesting that what is the right thing? I just think you have to do the stuff that you can live with. That's easier said than done, but I do think there is a right thing. I do think that it's really important to have the moral upper ground. Look, and it can feel quite smug and it can feel really quite fuck you, and that's quite a nice feeling sometimes. There's nothing wrong with that. A lot of people will attack on the scene, especially online, because there's no consequence. They don't give a shit. Nobody goes for anyone with slander or libel or anything else as well, because it's really difficult to prove. And I promise you, people out themselves. There is somebody in the scene in America who isn't American, who I have had a really icky feeling about for a very, very long time. And I'm very uncomfortable with the things they say. They run workshops on how to do strangulation and how to do all these different things. And what's interesting is a few people are starting to come forward talking about abuse now, and it's no surprise to me. And I'm like, oh God, I knew that was coming. You just have to just believe in yourself and let that person out themselves eventually, because they do. And that's really hard. Probably getting her ass in gear. This is my resolution. I had a big day today, and this is now top of the list abroad. Yeah, exactly. And get together and do that really soon. It has paid off keeping the high ground. It does. It's really helpful. It does make a difference. So, anybody got anything else they want to ask about to do with a New Year's resolution, to do with kink or anything else as well? Or are we wrapping up? Where are you with your questions, and what else would you like to discuss? Or do you have any ideas for anybody that's said anything so far? Anything else you want me to cover or look at? And then we need to think about, I'm doing another workshop again in 2 weeks. I've just done a list of workshops. Actually, if you want to look at that list and if you want anything off that, I'm going to be asked to do some of the Master Slave Conference workshops. They'll be online. I can do any of those subjects, or I can do anything you want me to do. We can do Q&A ones like this. And how do you keep yourself accountable for meeting your goals? That's a really good question, isn't it? I'm assuming you've heard of SMART goals that are specific, measurable, all those other things as well. So we need to keep our goals as goals to get to the bigger goal. Accountable is really interesting. You're not going to punish yourself. So what we need often are rewards. I can do this when I've managed that, and I'm going to do that. And what am I going to make from getting that? What would that mean to me? And as Poppy says, I also make them public. That can be really good. And you can talk to other people about it. So keeping them public can be helpful. It can also really humiliate you if you struggle with them. So it really depends. I asked something right after you opened up to questions. Can you remind me what that is? Because I'm by myself tonight. Jerry isn't here to help me with that. Let me just see if I can find it. Sorry. I do try and keep up with everything. Just having a look through, just try and find it. Oh, I was going through it. I was doing so well. Look at me. Oh, I'm really struggling with what I want going forward. I can't work out what is trauma to overcome and get back to, or what to leave behind. I can't work out what is trauma to overcome. It sounds to me like you're living in the past there, and that you're stuck with things. You're really struggling about what I want going forward. Is it because your goals aren't meeting up with your values? I can't work out what is trauma to overcome and get back to. Do you know what? I don't think we can ever get back to. If there's one thing that cancer taught me, and my own traumas have taught me, because I've had some fairly major traumas in my life too, is that there is always a new normal. You'll never go back to what was. There is a new normal, because this thing has impacted your life. So what do you want now going forward? And what encompasses that, and what difference does it make? If you have trauma, sometimes rather than trying to leave it behind, we have to blend it into our existence, because it is part of us, and it tells us something about ourselves, and it informs us moving forward. Rather than trying to leave it behind, how do you incorporate it? How do you work with it instead of against it? What's your new normal? What could it look like? What is it that you want? You sound struggling with what I want going forward. It might just also be that you're not ready to make those decisions yet. Sometimes when we are really struggling with a recent breakup or different things that have happened, we need to grieve. We need to see that through. The average grief time is like 2 years. It's not just a moment. I was in a TPDS dynamic that was so fulfilling, but abruptly ended 3 weeks ago. Fucking hell. Okay, they, them, you human being, tit sub. 3 weeks is not long enough. Fucking give yourself a break. Have more compassion. Give yourself time, and it might take you another 12 to 18 months, or even potentially 2 years. And I genuinely mean that. It's take your time. Grieving is a really normal process to go through, especially if you had a power exchange. Don't look that far forward yet. Just work with day to day and rolling. Feel the upset that you're feeling. Manage your feelings as best you can. They're not always necessarily trauma or traumatic. They will feel overwhelming and really difficult, but it's all about learning to ride that emotional wave and work out distress tolerance. That's really important for you right now. How do you learn to tolerate the distress that you're in? But looking at goals and moving forward, I just suggest you do day to day right now. I suggest that you grieve. You will feel empty. You will feel sad. You will feel angry. You will feel confused. You will be bargaining about what's happened. What can I do to get them back? If only I did this, I'm going to change this. If I'd have been different, this will happen. Fuck them. They can go kill themselves or die. I don't give a shit. No, I don't. I really want them to live. There's a really lovely line in Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I'm free if that bitch dies. And then he sits up, I better help her out, because he doesn't want her to die, but that's how he feels. You need to feel your feels. You've got such a long time to go yet. It's 3 weeks. And does anyone else agree with me on that? Like, it's 3 weeks. There's just no time there. It's going to take a long time. Give yourself breathing space. Be kind to yourself. Look at how you can be compassionate towards yourself, and don't try and look for things to actually, it's interesting, because I was saying about asking friends and stuff. Don't get those friends to step in straight away. Just grieve for a while. Mourn the losses that you're feeling and feel those feelings. It's really normal. It's average. It's every day. It's okay. It's going to take you a really long time. That doesn't mean you can't live, because we do live amongst grief. My mum died 18 months ago, and I grieve her still. I miss her. I feel really sad sometimes, and I'm really cross with her at other times, and I feel really different about a lot of things. I was really close to my mum. She was an incredible woman, and she was a pain in the arse and a martyr and many other things. She was awesome and fucking terrible. She was all of those things, because she was a human being. I don't think I'm there yet at all. I have days where I just listen to a bit of Barbra Streisand and I sob. I have days where I think my mum would really help me out here. She's the only one I can talk to. Who else have I got to talk to? And that's not true. I do have Poppy. I do have other people. But it's amazing the stories that we tell ourselves when we're grieving. It's okay to feel what you're feeling. and everybody is agreeing it's actually okay to feel the feelings, we just don't act on them, but 3 weeks is too soon. Be kind to yourself, be compassionate. It is going to take time to accept. It is. And I don't always think jumping underneath someone helps us. I think we forget to grieve when we do that. So it's really important to have that time. And it's also important to look at how can I work in the real world. It's been a year for me. He disappeared 2 weeks before a funeral of my godmother. Disappeared. Nice. Took me months before I could grasp what happened, still struggle with conditioning problems. Okay, let's talk about conditioning for a second. We talk about brainwashing, we talk about conditioning, we talk about all of those things. You can go for therapy, it might happen a tiny bit faster, but the truth is conditioning just takes time to wash out. And it will happen with time. I've worked with many people who've been in full orgasm control, couldn't brush their hair, couldn't do anything. And actually, that takes a long time for people to get through. And can some therapy help? Yes, it can make a difference. However, it's just about giving yourself the time. Poppy says, I always say it took longer to get over a TPE relationship than the duration of the relationship. That is a workshop of its own. Do you know what? When people come to therapy and they tell me they want to leave, they'll often say, hi, I'm leaving, bye. I say, no, you've been in therapy for 3 years. We're going to say goodbye for the next 3 months. Not 3 weeks, 3 months, because goodbye is a process in and of itself. And the problem is with power exchange relationships is they're cut off abruptly. We don't think that that's going to happen, and we have no plans in place. One of the things I will say to anybody entering a very strong, especially TPE, so a full power exchange, full-on exchange dynamic, is have a fucking exit plan. Both of you have an exit plan written out, sorted out, something that you can follow even if that person disappears. It's really important. And it's also important to, like, I've worked with many a widow and widower as well, where there was full control. What's been put into place for you to make sure that you're okay, or what can you do? And they're really important things to work through in your head, and they're really important to discuss with somebody. Let's not talk about that. It doesn't matter. It fucking matters if you want to condition my orgasms to you, and then I can't fucking come for the next 6 months when you decide to fuck off, or you decide to die on me. How do you make an exit plan? What's in there? Just those sort of things that I've just spoken about. So if you're going for a full and total pre-mortem planning, one of my favorite words that I use all the time. So what are all the things that I will struggle with when you leave because we are in a total power exchange? Am I asking you to go to the toilet? Am I asking you what I eat? Am I asking you what I'm wearing? Are we into orgasm control? Are you asking me to use toys regularly on myself? Are you asking me to stretch myself? Are you asking me to change the things that I'm doing in my life, change my job, reading differently, acting differently, change my hair, shave my head? There you go. There's just something to start with. How will I manage those things and bring back control of them to myself should you leave? I want 3 or 4 recordings of your voice that help me unhypnotize myself or uncondition myself about these things. I want an exit plan of what that will look at, all of those things. Jim says, so many people call themselves a master mistress and take on a slave or sub, not fully knowing or understanding what they're undertaking, and end up doing emotional and psychological damage. I 100% agree. When they suddenly realise they don't really know what they are talking about. Part of being a good dominant is having an exit plan, I think, especially if you are doing total power exchange. Now, if that slave just decides to leave and disappears, I think I've got a whole writing on pre-morteming. It's something I talk about all the time. So it's all the possibilities that could happen and having 3 or 4 break-offs or potentials for each of those things that may happen. Touch on how we can create stories in our head. I attended a training called Crucial Conversations. Excellent course on books. You're asking me to touch on it related to this or differently? So it's how, so just to go back to that one. So an exit plan is all the strategies that you could put in place should that person drop dead, be dying, not be able to control, and need caring for, so that control is gone, and or they just decide to leave. And if they decide to leave without the care for you and giving those things back, that's what you're looking for. How can I have those things back, take those things back? What will that look like? How can you help me do that before you leave? I'm not going to leave you. Oh, okay, thank you, Mistress Rose. Thank you for that. So it's, people can say, but I'm not going to leave. Well, it's not always by choice. It might be that something awful happens to you. It might be that, I can honestly say during chemo, fuck me, I don't know how I did it, but I carried on seeing 30 to 40 clients a week. Must be mad. However, it also kept me sane. It really did help me. All of my clients were told that they could go. I had other people set up for them to see. Wasn't a problem. I kind of didn't see 10 of my clients who were probably the most complex people that I was seeing at that time. And I had 10 to 15 supervisees that I said, I'm really sorry, that has definitely got to stop. But these sort of, I think it was about 33 clients didn't want to leave. They were willing to put up with what I was going through and work with me on it. So we put lots of plans in place that I won't work then, but I will work then. If I'm sick, I'll make up here, I'll do these things here. And it's having all those ideas in. I think many parts of an exit plan mirror decent will. I'd agree with you. What happens financially, who has the key to the safe with the passports, and who's supporting you to make arrangements, and cope with the immediate future is a starter for 10. I'd agree with that. Well, clearly I would agree on those things. So it's just, what can I do immediately? Do you know, I think if a dominant has full financial control, part of your responsibility as a dominant is to put some of that money aside. So that if you decide to leave and you decide to go, that they have half of that money set up for their future. I don't think you should just take full financial control and go, fuck it, you're out there on your own with nothing. I think that's really irresponsible. I think that's cruel, and I think it's inconsiderate. It depends what level. And I think if somebody's doing full power exchange or TPE to that level, I think you have a responsibility for all the plans for what if I. And I think sometimes as a submissive, we have to flip that position of power and say, right, what if they and what if I? How do I protect and sort myself out? You have to think about it in marriage. You have to think about it when you live together. You have to think about it when you buy a house together. You have to think about it when you have children together. Why don't we think about it in a TPE? It's really important that we do. Or a very strong MS dynamic. What is your setup? What will this look like? Where will we live? Who has the CDs? Who has the cat? Do we chop the cat in half? Do we have 2 dogs instead of 1 so we can have 1 each? Or now we're separating them. You have the dogs. I'll have the dogs for this week. You have the dogs. It's the same principle. It really is. It's really similar. And I would agree that actually with creating stories in our head is Crucial Conversations. It is a great book. It's one I recommend. Pumpkin's anxiety is just spiked. I'm not surprised, Bella. I've got 3 dogs, puppies, but you know, you have to plan, you have to think of these things. You do. What will happen to my dogs if I die? It's a good question, isn't it? What if I'm really ill again? What if I can't handle it? What then? And it is really important to ask, do I set up a life insurance plan for this person so that they can look after themselves, so that they are okay? If you're going to do that for when you die, why aren't you setting up something for them when you live, when you're going to leave? Especially if you have full dependability. You want all of that control. It comes at a cost. And that cost is too great to that person if you just walk away and leave them. You can have the kids, I'm having the dogs, I'll take yours too. Simon. Oh God. Can you imagine your house with all those dogs, 5 dogs? It'd be manic. All right, so anyone got a final question before we go? If not, I will say Happy New Year, happy good resolutions. I hope that your new year is all you want it to be. There's too much pressure on it. I'm not going out, I'm not seeing anyone, I'm going to bed. I want to do nothing, absolutely nothing. That's my New Year's plan. We put too much pressure on ourselves. Mindful, thanks Steph for running the session at such a busy time. Thank you to you. Good to see a substantial attendance. Yeah, it's quite cool. Must go Happy New Year and to you. Poppy, you're not taking my dogs. Okay. Happy Hogmanay when it comes to everyone. Lang me your long week. Thank you very much. And Happy New Year, everyone. Lots of kisses and hugs from Moon. Thank you so much. Happy New Year. You're welcome, honey. Squirty, Happy New Year. Thank you so much. You're so welcome. Madam Princess, Happy New Year. Deb, may I have a good year of good health. Thank you. And thank you, Karen. Happy New Year. Thank you, Deb. Thank you. Peaceful New Year to you all. And thank you so much. Thank you very much. You're all very kind. I do these for free. I do have a coffee, KOFI, and I do have a patron if everybody wants to donate, and you don't have to. These are for free. That is the point of them as well. And if you want to, I never say no to an extra coffee or a tenner or a £5 or a £1. So thank you very much as well. Everyone's saying Happy New Year. Thank you very much. Same to all of you. Thank you for coming today. I think we've covered some interesting things. So have a great time, and I will see you all in a couple of weeks. Thank you. Show my miss as call on 101 so neighbours have a place to visit. Oh, exciting. We all want to know why now, because we all love gossip. I expect you to write to me and tell me exactly why. All right, lovelies. Take care. Happy New Year. See you all soon. Wank away like a bunch of brats. See you later. Bye. Take care. Bye.